Today, I want to talk about what I like calling the accountability trap, Charles, which is when leaders think that they're creating accountability in their organizations, but they're actually creating fear or they're creating blame or they might even be creating confusion. You'll see leaders saying things like, hey, we need to hold people accountable, or I don't want excuses, I want results, or, these people just need to
Mm.
take ownership. But when they do that, what actually happens?
That's weaponized accountability.
Mm.
That is a performance,
Hmm.
right? It sounds really good around the table. Who's accountable? Who's responsible for that, right? I'm a good leader because I'm going to make a specific person accountable for that. Or the flip side of that script, which is I'm accountable. I take full responsibility for that. And in both cases, whoopee shit, nothing's changed, nothing's happened because that's it. It's somehow presented in weaponized form as some ultimate form of moral high ground, wherein if you take responsibility and you take accountability or you assign accountability or responsibility, that there it is, it's done. No, it's not. Nothing's done, nothing's changed. Moving on, let's get to the next agenda topic. Wait a
Right.
minute, there's no root cause there. There's no solution. There's no fixes. There's no changes. Nothing. It's just that's me. That's my fault. I take responsibility for that. Okay, that's fine. That's step one. Too many organizations think that it's the finish line.
And not just that, but I feel like it's the perfect recipe for people to start covering their asses. And you're going to start seeing employees not raising their hands when something goes wrong. Meetings start to become a little tense. You start to kill initiative in your employees. And you might even see people like start pointing fingers at each
Mm-hmm,
other.
mm-hmm. One of the hardest pills for leaders, executive leaders to swallow is when they pull this accountability crap and I come back to them and say, well, terrific, you made this individual accountable and responsible for something in a broken container and within which they have no agency, they have no authority, they have no control, they have no leverage to make any change. So you have, as a leader, once again, have failed. You've put all the accountability and responsibility on an individual who is set up to fail because you haven't given them the rest of the tools, the rest of the picture, the rest of the leverage, whatever's necessary to actually affect change.
Right. So let me just bluntly ask you, what do most leaders out there think accountability means, and what are they getting wrong?
They think that by making someone accountable, there's this expectation that they're now going to go do something about it. And that's not the case at all. In fact, if you, as a mid level manager or as a subordinate of any kind, get comfortable taking accountability and responsibility because in a horrible organization, there's no consequence, right? I'll take accountability for that. I'll take responsibility for that. I'll take accountability for that. I'll take responsibility for that. I don't care. So what? Yeah. All right. So I look like it was my fault, but not like I say, it's they treat it like it's somehow the moral high ground. Like, oh, this is my best performing team member. Why? Because they take accountability for everything. Really? Have they done anything about it? Have they fixed any of those? No, but they're accountable for it. Like what? You guys are talking bullshit, right? It's just more corporate speak for boots on the ground and circling back and all that. I mean, having accountability means nothing if you're not taking action.
Uh, so why is we need more accountability such a go-to phrase for struggling teams and
Well,
executives out there?
because those struggling teams and struggling executives are in over their head and they're overwhelmed, and they think that by making other people accountable that they've somehow delegated.
Hmm.
Their expectation is if you're accountable for that and you're responsible for that, well, then you're going to handle it.
Right.
We've never had that conversation. I've never set that expectation. I haven't given you the tools. I haven't given you the authority. But that's how I'm treating it. Again, like it's some kind of moral high ground where this person just every week takes accountability for 3/4 of the problems and nothing ever gets fixed and nothing ever changes.
Have you seen an example where a leader pushes for accountability and it actually made things worse?
Oh, absolutely. Once again, if if you've given someone accountability in a broken system, what are they going to do about it? It's only going to make it worse. Like I'm now accountable for this. I don't understand this metric. I don't understand it at all. In fact, it's outside of my sphere of influence. It's outside my limit of authority. I have this conversation with team members every year when they write their performance goals. Okay. Do not write a performance goal that has a metric in it that you personally cannot affect. Right. One of my performance goals is, I'm gonna make sure the company's profitable. What? As the maintenance manager, you're gonna make sure the company is profitable, dude. Don't put that on your performance review. That's completely outside of your control. What are you doing?
Mm-hmm.
It's the same thing when you assign someone responsibility or accountability for a metric that they don't fully understand and that they can't personally affect. Because then it becomes, hey, hours or days after that meeting where I was made accountable. Okay, so, hey, I'm calling about this thing. Yeah, man, I'm busy. Like, figure it out yourself. You're accountable for it, not me. Like, but I don't understand the input to, oh, well, that just magnifies the dysfunction. And so many leaders, when I sit down with them, are like, yeah, no, we're great. We're great. I have this person, they're accountable for that. And this person is my lead on that. And this person is my go-to person with that. And then I talk to those individuals. I'm like, oh, hey, so, I hear you're the guy to talk to about this. I'm like, what's the hesitation? Well, I mean, yeah, I'm the guy for that, but I can't really control it. I just report out on it. Oh,
Is is there a difference between accountability and blame?
yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So blame is funny in that it's that's intention and tone, really.
Mm-hmm.
But this is why I get fired up about this. Extreme ownership. Well, ownership's kind of probably the positive, more proactive approach to this idea of accountability. But blame is what most organizations do when they use accountability. We've made blame a dirty word, a bad word. So organizations have learned not to say blame. What they've learned to do instead is, again, try to position themselves on some moral high ground, and they use accountability. But what they really mean is blame.
Right.
Accountability has authority with it. Accountability has a full scope. All this is within my control, and therefore I am accountable to it. Yup. Okay, that makes sense. But who put this on that slide? Who sourced that data? Well, me. Oh, you're accountable for why it's wrong.
Hmm.
Wait a minute. Hang on a second.
So, how do you create a culture inside an organization where people want to proactively take ownership of things instead of fearing that they're going to get punished if they mess up?
Top down. Top down. I mean, I'm going to borrow from Jocko, and he uses the word ownership, which I just kind of touched on very briefly. Ownership is a very different word intentionally from accountability. Ownership says I own this, right? I
Mm-hmm.
am going to run this to ground. I am going to do my very best with my piece of this to ensure the best possible outcome. Accountability is just who did this. It's a who did this. And the only way organizations can change is from the top down. And that's not that we expect the CEO to stand up at an all hands meeting and say, oh, this is my fault. I'm accountable for this. But really, it was a finance thing. But, it bubbles up to me, so I'm accountable. No, that's not what you want. If you want a positive culture of ownership, you want a positive culture of people actually giving a damn about what happens in the company, then you yourself have to take ownership and give it down.
Can you describe in a practical way what true accountability should feel like in a high functioning team?
Yeah. Accountability has multiple facets. You can't just label someone accountable. Accountability has to have the things that I've kind of described a little bit in pieces, which is I have to have authority over whatever I'm accountable for. I have to be able to affect the change. I have to understand it. I have to know what the metrics mean. I have to know what the expectations are. I have to know the inputs, the process, and the output. It's not enough to just say that I'm accountable. You actually have to understand what it is that's happening so that you can speak to it and so that you can affect change and do some root cause.
So, what do you need to put in place before you can expect accountability to show up?
You have to create a space where
Uh-huh.
it's safe and where it's encouraged and where it's positively reinforced to take accountability for something.
Right. So this goes back to the whole idea of let's not punish people for actually, uh,
Right, right.
yeah. So,
Behaviors over outcomes, right?
mm,
So accountability isn't a single step, single action, single point. Oh, I'm accountable. Check mark. Let's move on. Accountability is
can
a behavior.
can account? This is a weird question, but can accountability and compassion like somewhat coexist, or are they often seen as completely opposites that just can't you can't mix them up?
Yeah, no, there's nothing inherently aggressive about accountability,
Okay.
right? Again, if unfortunately, it sounds like you have some pretty personal experience with weaponized accountability.
Maybe.
I might be picking up on that a little bit, you know. Um, yeah, no, 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 no. There's this idea of compassionate accountability. Absolutely, we don't kill the messenger, right? We don't punish the person who stands up, raises their hand, and says something's not right. This is rewarding the behavior over the word, the title, the outcome, whatever the case may be. Which is, hey, I don't think this is right. Okay, then we have to have a culture in every level of the organization that says, please tell me more. Please tell me more. Let me decide. Oh, you're right. That isn't exactly the way that we had intended. And I made the executive decision a couple of weeks ago to change that to this because of this. It was temporary, and I will let you know when we'll go back to doing it the other way. But right now, it needs to be this way. That I'm accountable for that decision, not just on paper, but I understand why, the when, the where, and I'm completely open to sharing that with the rest of the team. And also, I didn't shut that person down when they had a legitimate question about their job or the function of the organization. I didn't say, that's me. Just don't worry about it. I didn't say that. I created an
So,
environment because one day somebody's going to raise their hand and say, hey, this doesn't look right. And everybody's going to be surprised and go, oh, crap. Yeah, you're right. That doesn't look right. Oh my gosh. That could have shut us down. That could have hurt someone significantly. That could have whatever. If you're not willing to accept the little stuff that in some instances where a team member might be wrong, if you're not willing to accept those, then you're never going to get those holy crap moments.
how do you personally coach leaders through this? What's the mindset shift that they need to
Yeah.
make?
I so much of my work just focuses on abolishing fear and insecurity in leaders. I have a philosophy that all bad behavior stems from fear. And that means these weaponized behaviors, these silly words, this corporate crap that goes on, 99 times out of 100, we're not bad people. We're not bad people. We're afraid. We don't know. We're insecure. It's those things. So the bulk of my coaching and mentoring is around, like, who are you? What do you bring to the table? What do you bring to the organization? Who do you serve? What do you do better than anyone else? What breaks your heart? I mean, that's the trifecta of determining and defining your purpose. Even if that purpose is within an organization as XYZ manager, XYZ leader, XYZ contributor, like there's no judgment on the level of your purpose. It's who do you serve? What do you do better than anyone else? And what breaks your heart? And so all the work in leadership is about stop trying to be someone else. Stop trying to adopt some other persona or some other identity that doesn't fit you, because that's where the fear and the insecurity comes in. That doubt, that questioning, that second guessing that goes on. It's because I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know what I'm supposed to do. And that a lot of that work is, well, I was never told. I never had this conversation. I don't know what the expectations are. I was the top performing technician and now I'm a manager, but nobody ever had a conversation with me about the difference between the two. Right? I'm still part of the team. I just do more stuff. No, it's a completely different role. So much of the employee relations and human resources issues that I have to get involved with as a coach and as a consultant, it's misunderstandings. It's as simple as no one ever told me the expectation. No one ever told me what the role and responsibilities were. So it hasn't been defined. And for a lot of organizations, they've never actually sat down and defined those. So they'll have a quick conversation with someone who's promoted into a management position and say, okay, this is what we need you to do. And it's metric, 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 metric. And nothing to do with leadership style, has nothing to do with communication style, has nothing to do with culture. It's metric, 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 metric. And then they go out and drive to that metric and they think that's what leadership is. And it's not.
So you think fear is probably the root cause of all of these misguided leadership decisions?
I have yet to be proven wrong. Yes.
But within fear, you mentioned, for example, lack of training. Because your fear stems from your lack of training, for example. It could stem from that.
Absolutely. Because a lack of training creates a gap in your understanding, a gap in your, right? It's just, I don't know what I'm supposed to do, or I've never done this before. So the fear triggers, oh shit, right. I could do a couple of things. There's a fork in my road. I can fake it and guess, or I can just get aggressive and push back on someone and not acknowledge that I don't know and make them accountable.
And I was going to throw in ego into the equation as well. I feel like people are, some leaders are full of ego, and some have the right to be a little bit egocentric, if you will, because they've been successful in the past. Yeah. But ego has a little bit of a root in fear as well, would you say?
Yeah, definitely. So the ego is the protection of all that. And so, and I'm with you. Some people have an ego because they have a record of performance or success. But here's the trick. That does not apply to every facet of your life, right? Tom Brady has every right in the world to be egotistical about his being a quarterback and what it took to be a leader of a football team. That does not give Tom Brady the right to tell me how to coach clients or right. Stay in your lane. Like, be really careful. This is where, people with a really big ego who love it tend to overreach themselves as they get out of their lane. They get out of their zone of genius and still think they're, perfect at everything. It's like, you're not, you're failing miserably. And this is, how this happens within an organization is, once again, I'm the technical person who designed this business, who designed this widget, who wrote this software, whatever the case is. I'm a genius. I'm so great. Look at my product. Everybody loves it. Okay, cool. Now let's make you a CEO of that same company. You know that within 5 years, 73%, I think, percent of startup CEOs are replaced. And it's not because of the product. It's not because of any of that. It's because the company has outgrown their capacity. It's a completely different job skill. It's a completely different skill set. The company's growing faster than most CEOs can keep up because they don't pay any attention to these ideals like ego and fear and emotional intelligence and communication styles. They think what got them there is going to keep them there. But when you suddenly have, you go public, or you have, an investment group that comes in and sets a board of directors, all of a sudden, all your dreams come true, and your company's worth millions of dollars and has hundreds, thousands, tens of thousands of employees. That requires a very different person. And so the ego is, but it's my company and I built it and I know it better than anyone else. Dude, that piece, that you created, this company has become so much more than that. And you're basing all your ego and all your bravado on this one piece that you created, and you've been
So
outpaced.
let's just for fun, if you could replace, I'm going to hold people accountable with a better phrase that points to the right direction that executives should be using, what phrase would that be?
Yeah, it's the same formula, Tony. It's the same formula over and over and over. Ask better effing questions. Like, ask better questions. So this isn't correct. Well, it was right. It's just that there's kind of weird, we could take the data from here, or we could take the data from here, and sometimes they don't line up. It kind of depends on the timing. Okay. So which number is true? Which number is correct? Well, this one from this system. Why? Why don't those two systems talk to each other? Well, because we have to reconcile them at midnight on Tuesday. And so, the most accurate data and the only time that they're really in sync is Wednesday morning. Okay, so when are we pulling the data? Oh, Thursday afternoon. Does that make sense to anyone? Right? Who and or just more and more questions, right? Like, I'll go into deep consulting mode here to really get to root cause of this. But you as the leader, it's not just about, hey, you go fix this. And it's like, fix what? We told you the systems don't talk to each other. What do you want me to do about it? I can grab data at a different time. I can grab it from a different place. I can, what do you want me to do? So as the leader of an organization, it's not enough to say you're now accountable to make sure this number is right. What's right? Define right, because we just told you that all the numbers are right. It just depends when you grab it and how you slice it and how you dice it. For this, how do you want it sliced and diced? Because a few months ago, we made the decision that this was the right number for this meeting, but now we're questioning it because somebody new came in the room and said, that's not the number that I have, right? So it's always about asking better questions. It's not enough to make someone accountable. You've got to do enough root cause to understand whose sphere of influence, whose role, responsibility, limit of authority overlaps the root cause. That's the right person to make accountable for affecting change and for aligning things the way that you need them in the organization. It's not enough to say, you reported the number, therefore you're accountable. Well, technically, I pulled that number from that guy. So, you got to have those conversations.
Right. Well, I think today's was a little shorter, but very much effective, if you ask me.
Punchy.
I mean, to be honest, I the one takeaway that I'm walking away from this conversation is fear. It's the whole concept of fear. I think it's like you put blame on other people because you can't. I mean, you're scared to be vulnerable enough to be able to admit that, hey, you don't know certain things and you want to blame other people because you're not getting the results that you had hoped for and stuff like that. I don't know.
Yep. Fear, we could talk about fear all day. Because,
and we have talked about fear before, but it continues to show up.
Yeah, absolutely. So, if you buy into my philosophy, if you buy into just at my framework, we would call it, you don't even have to, it's not a religion, right? But if you buy into, okay, I can see where Charles has come from when he says all bad behavior stems from fear. I'm not gonna split hairs with that too much. I buy into what he's saying. If you start to think like that, yeah. And what does fear cause us to do? Avoid, blame, gloss over,
Attack,
right?
maybe?
Like attack, Absolutely, and it depends how you sense that fear and how you feel that fear. In a business and corporate perspective, it's usually about status. It's usually about competency. It's for some people, it's literally attack on their certainty, their safety, and their security of I could lose my job, and therefore I've got to protect what I have. Right. So I mean, it's nuanced and it's very personalized, but most people who are struggling to communicate, struggling to affect change, struggling to lead and influence, and it's because of that internal conflict of I haven't earned the right, I'm not good enough, I don't, it's their own fears and insecurities. But that becomes a cancer in an organization, especially when it starts at the top, and you have a leader who is uncertain of what they're doing, why they're doing it, and how to really influence people. That just trickles down to this very, very shaky house of cards. You
Hmm.
build an organization where everybody's on guard all the time. Nobody wants to take too much responsibility. They want just enough to stay. They want to be in the light so that they get recognized, but they don't want to be so far in the light that anything gets scrutinized. Like, dude, I could create this entire organization for you and tell you exactly what all the moods and attitudes are because I see it time and time again.
Well, Charles, I appreciate your time, and I guess I'll talk to you next week.
Yeah, good one.